The honourable member for Calgary, Forest Lawn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians are poor, a theme all too common under this Liberal NDP government after 9 years. Because Canadians know that they could do all the right things. They could go to school, have a part-time job while they're going to school, make ends meet, get a job, and work and put in as much as they can to save up. But they all know at the end of the day that there is a government that will do everything in their power to work against all of that hard work. The Canadian experience, or the Canadian dream that we used to have in this country, used to include things that would seem very basic for any country, that you put in hard work, you could own a home, you could own a business, you could send your kids to a good playground or a school where they wouldn't find needles and other like crack pipes and things like that. Or they would be able to just walk down the street without fear of being mugged or fear of going through tent cities like we're seeing across this country. But after 9 years of this Liberal NDP government, that experience, the Canadian experience or the Canadian dream is gone, where 9 out of 10 young people say they've lost the dream of home ownership. They see a government where single moms have to make decisions whether they have to skip meals now because of the carbon tax scam that was increased once again by this Liberal NDP government. There's a woke, ideologically extremist government that will do everything in their power to make sure Canadians will never be successful. It's because we have an out-of-touch Prime Minister who has probably never had to fill up gas in his own car, probably has never went grocery shopping on his own. I'm not even sure if he knows how to open doors anymore. He probably needs to get retrained after he's not going to be Prime Minister anymore next year. And the sad part is that the incoming Liberal leader, who's going to be coordinated, Mark Carbon Tax Carney, is no different. Because the pain that this Liberal NDP government is inflicting on Canadians does nothing to these trust fund babies or these elitists, but it does everything to harm the middle class and workers. You don't have to look very far to see the pain that this government has caused after 9 years, with nothing but blind support from the NDP. Because on top of the tent cities, there are food banks with larger and larger lineups at them, with different demographics than there were 9 years ago. In fact, demographics that you could have a good paying job and you'll still have to line up at a food bank, where you could have a good paying job. You could be a teacher or a nurse, but you'll still have to end up sleeping in your car because after 9 years of this Liberal NDP government that spent $89 billion on housing, doubled housing costs. Rents and mortgages have doubled. In fact, rents are at the highest rate they've ever been in Canadian history. But it's no surprise because you have an out-of-touch Liberal NDP government that has no clue. According to them, Canadians have never had it so good. They've never had it so good. It's because none of these Liberal or NDP MPs or this Prime Minister actually talk to Canadians. They'd rather rub elbows like Mark Carbon Tax Carney does with the elites of the world. They would rather do that than sit at a dinner table with everyday Canadians and workers. Ones that can't afford groceries anymore. Ones that are deciding whether they should get that extra grocery or think about, can we actually afford heat or our rent this month? Kids that are going starving because of the cost of food. But that's 9 years of this Liberal NDP government. And the problem is that productivity in this country has declined once again for the 7th consecutive quarter. I spoke on Bill C-69 just weeks ago, and at that time, GDP per capita, or what we call how productive is the country, that was at the lowest rate since 2016, I'm sorry. The week before that, GDP per capita was at the worst rate since 2017. And today, Mr. Speaker, GDP per capita is worse than it was in 2014. Because Canadians got hit with 40-year highs in inflation caused by this Liberal NDP government's out-of-control spending, they got the most rapid interest rate hikes not seen in Canadian history. They got slammed by a carbon tax scam that only went up and did nothing for the environment, that only made the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating even more expensive. Not only did this government do that, but they also made sure that investment in this country fled. More than $200 billion of investment has fled already since 2016. That is the record of this government, but again, according to them, Canadians have never had it so good. In fact, they've never had it so good, Canadians want to leave. More Canadians are leaving each year now because of the high cost of living. That Canadian dream that everyone thought of or came here for, just like my family did, it's gone. And the proof is in the numbers. The food bank usage, the people fleeing from here or thinking about leaving from here, the amount of bankruptcies, the insolvencies. And I'll give an example of a small business owner, the ones that this government considers tax cheats. So I have a friend in the GTA, came here, left everything back at home, took the big risk of coming to this country, and he came at a good time. He came at a time when taxes were low, rent was half of what it was today, and that was under a Stephen Harper government. But it was at a time where you knew when you can put in hard work and get something back. He started his first job as a janitor in this country, and now he's a very, very successful transport owner. But what happened in that time and what's happened now? He was able to save up, he was able to send his kids to a good school, and now they're a part of that business as well. But what happened to him? Now he's being taxed more than ever before by this ideologically driven government, because in this country now, after 9 years, success is vilified. If you make money, they're going to take it. And now he's got hit with higher carbon tax costs. He can't find workers because this government has broken the immigration system. And on top of all that, extortion has happened to him. Because he's going to get hit with every single bad policy after 9 years of this Liberal NDP government. So he's getting higher taxes, he's not getting the proper labor he needs to make so he can grow his business. And because of his success, it's not only just vilified by this government, but now extortion is done on him because the soft on crime policies of this government has done that to him in his business. Now, can you believe it? His family lives in fear. The family lives in separate hotel rooms. They have bulletproof windows on their house and cars. And on top of that, they live in fear every single day. And now they're thinking about leaving. This is a story that's all too common in this country after 9 years of this Liberal NDP government. By every measure, productivity has gone down. That always affects the most vulnerable, that always affects the middle class, the ones that this Liberal NDP government supposedly is always standing up for. But there is hope, Mr. Speaker. Hope is on the horizon, and it cannot come soon enough. Because under a common sense conservative government, we're going to turn this country around. That Canadian dream is going to be something that is going to be revered once again around the world. Because under the leadership of the member from Carleton, we're going to axe the tax. We're going to get rid of the carbon tax for all and bring down the cost of gas, groceries, and home heating. We're going to make sure businesses can keep that money so they can invest more in themselves and in workers. We're going to fix the budget. We're going to make sure that we bring in a dollar for dollar law so that a dollar spent needs to have a dollar of savings somewhere, unlike this government that doesn't understand because they think that budgets balance themselves. That's going to help lower inflation and interest rates. We're going to build the homes and not more bureaucracy like we've seen under this government that's doubled the cost of housing in all aspects. And we're going to stop the crime by bringing in back mandatory minimums so that we can have safe streets and safe communities once again. Because under a common sense conservative government from the member from Carleton, we're going to bring home that Canadian dream once again, something that this out-of-touch Liberal NDP government has destroyed after 9 years. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.